What is up, people of the Arrowverse? Welcome to quite the interesting video today, and that is because we're talking about the cancellation of not only Batwoman, but Legends of Tomorrow. So after 7 seasons, Legends is now just done and dusted, and Batwoman, after 3 seasons, some of which are saying was its best season, is now over. So today I'm going to get into not only my thoughts about this, like my personal thoughts, also try to understand why exactly this is happening, because it's not just as simple as whether some of you don't like these shows out there just being like, oh, they sucked, that's why they cancelled it. It's always a bit more complicated than that. And just generally what this means for the Arrowverse, because a lot of you have wanted my thoughts on not only just this in general, but some of you asking, what does this bode well for other shows like Superman and Lois? What's going on there? Naomi? And everything like that with regards to Gotham Knights coming in. So let's have a bit of a discussion. And the biggest thing I think that sucks is that, you know, these shows won't really get proper closure. I mean, I doubt they're going to get a proper extended goodbye to the characters. And that's also because, you know, this is a cancellation. There's a big difference between shows ending and cancellation that people quite often misinterpret or put out there online, saying things like Arrow was cancelled. No, it wasn't. Arrow ended. Stephen Amell wanted to kind of, you know, and collectively the creatives were like, okay, yeah, let's end this show, do a final 10 episode or however long it was, season 8. That's the difference between that being cancelled and ending, and that's why Arrow ended. The difference between that and Legends and Batwoman now is that, oh, you know, they were going to go for a season 4 in terms of that was their aspirations, the creative people behind it, the actors, the writers' room, whoever, they would ideally like to carry on. Same with the Legends of Tomorrow people. Other factors come into play here, like, for example, they didn't wrap up any of the storylines or the characters at the end of the seasons. So, as a result, that is a big kind of cancellation because they're not going to get a chance to say goodbye or wrap up those storylines for, like, Ryan Wilder's Batwoman. Same with Legends. There's no exit. It's just when you get cancelled, it's like if you didn't close that season off, because obviously not every show does that because they expect perhaps another season. Well, when it's cancelled, it's just like, gone. Like, goodbye. That's it. So again, if you're a big fan of these shows, I really do understand the frustration there. I personally tuned out of Legends of Tomorrow and Batwoman, so I'm personally not frustrated at any potential cliffhangers or whatever could have been going on with regards to the story continuing in Batwoman Season 4 or the next season of Legends of Tomorrow, but I can completely understand the frustration of, oh, now that it's just cancelled, there is no, like, oh, goodbye to what's going on with those characters, and that must really, really, really suck. I mean, sure, like, let me just give my personal take. I don't think these shows, like, and this is my opinion, you can be a big fan of this. This isn't me saying as to why it got cancelled. I don't think they were that great at all, to be honest. Like, I dipped off Legends quite early on. I was a fan of it in the first couple of seasons, but it always felt like, to me, its identity was constantly being, you know, discussed or, like, decided over. And then it eventually got to a point of where they really embraced the wacky. And I'm not against wacky. I just feel like it wasn't, you know, for me in terms of, like, I like wacky with certain other productions, but I think mixed in with the Arrowverse kind of combination and production and writing quality, it just wasn't personally for me. Batwoman, I really tried to give it a go as well. As you guys know, I did somewhat intermittent reviews on that in the second season. I still just, again, on a writing factor for me, it just, I couldn't really get into it. But even though, you know, there's a majority of fans out there or audience who are like, oh yes, the Arrowverse, the CW is shite and stuff like that, which I completely disagree with, because there's shows like Superman and Lois which do really feel like they've made a vast step up in terms of quality. That wouldn't really be why these have ended, because some people are now saying, you know, floating about online, that this is due to ratings, and that's not really the case. Like, Batwoman achieved ratings that were more than satisfactory enough for the CW. Like, there's been many years on many shows on the CW where ratings, you know, haven't been the best, but it gets renewed again, it gets renewed again. That's not really what will get a show completely tanked, if you know what I mean, because there are all kinds of other factors with regards to, like, playback on the CW website and this, that, and the other. Of course, if 2 viewers were watching it, I can understand your argument there. But just going off what's been approved in the Arrowverse before, for multiple seasons, Batwoman and Legends, you know, still had their fan bases enough to basically get renewed. So this does seem to be down to a couple of different factors, and I'm not trying to pretend to be the arbiter of truth of the CW cancellations. But, you know, when you peel back the curtain a little bit, we've got new series on the way, such as Gotham Knights, and there's a few other things that have been ordered for pilot on the CW. There's the whole thing going on with Warner Brothers Discovery, and I'm not saying that somebody over there just said, right, straight up cancel these shows. At the bottom line, things like entertainment, no matter what, are down to money. So at the end of the day, whether it's them shaping up, okay, do we really carry on with Legends, which has been going on for 7 seasons, and Batwoman, when we can maybe have this cost of this show come in, and the scheduling with regards to the output of shows on the CW, maybe we should just swipe those aside and bring in something like Gotham Knights in the future, to the point of where they're maybe thinking it might not have been worth it so much anymore for those shows as well. Plus the Arrowverse, when you look at it in a bit of retrospect now, or just a bit of an overall zoom out of the map table, it somewhat had its time as something, and this is just me being candid here, I don't think it speaks for everything, but the Arrowverse that once was, let me put it this way, it feels to me it's gone past its sell-by date. That means it can still be watched, you know, if you want to use the analogy of food, but it's just the formulaic format and approach to those shows of old, which had been maintained by a lot of them, and The Flash is still going despite its, you know, best efforts of trying to soldier on. It's not really at a quality that I think people tune into that much, you know, anymore. Whereas, you know, there's a notable difference in Superman and Lois. Now, I'm not saying it's the best show out there in the whole planet Earth's history of superhero shows. I'm not saying that, but there is a notable difference. Now, when you look at Batwoman, again, I can't really speak so much here because I haven't watched season 3 or Legends of Tomorrow. I'm just saying with shows like Stargirl coming along with a bit more of a change in production, quality of, you know, just run and storyline, and that of Superman and Lois, I'm starting to think if they're maybe trying to phase out a little bit, especially when we've got more shows coming along the way. Now, this is where things get interesting with what the Hollywood Reporter said, because it kind of just speaks to that larger thing that could be going on behind the scenes. The Hollywood Reporter says that the cancellation of 2 veteran shows are a rarity for the CW in recent years. Aside from pre-announced endings, the Mark Pedowitz-led network has cut very few shows in recent years. Just 4, in fact, in the 4 seasons prior to this one. But the network is also facing big changes as parent companies Warner Brothers, Discovery, and Paramount Global consider a sale of the broadcaster, with local TV giant Nexstar considered the leading candidate. The CW was previously driven by revenue earned from a $1 billion Netflix deal that saw all of the network's scripted series stream on the service. The CW opted to not renew that deal, with the newer series going to either HBO Max for shows from Warner Brothers TV or Paramount Plus, series produced by CBS Studios. International revenue as well has largely vanished, as those rights, rather than being sold off abroad and contributing millions to their respective studios, are now also being kept in-house. Now, if I have this information correct, I don't think Batwoman was a part of that Netflix deal, for example. So this is another way to maybe wrap your head around some of the loose things that are happening here that could have contributed to, for example, I'm thinking, maybe we should just end Batwoman as well. With it just being on HBO Max, and then the numbers that it did get on the CW, even though we've talked about how the CW doesn't need that much high ratings at all, despite lots of other people out there, when they make videos like this saying, ha! Batwoman was cancelled, look at the ratings, it's tanking. That doesn't really matter. Like, they still renew shows, as we've seen in prior years, with mediocre ass average ratings. But now, when they've got Batwoman, and then they don't even have it going to this Netflix deal, which, you know, would have got them some money, and it's just going on HBO Max, and let's just say it's not getting a bunch of attention on HBO Max, and it's not getting these other bits and bobs from the Netflix deal and things like that, they're probably like, well, considering we've got other things planned, these other series, not just Gotham Knights, I can't remember the other series off the top of my head, but obviously they're ordering new series and thinking what else they can bring into their slots. They're probably like, at the end of the day, when we're doing this budget kind of money thing, let's say goodbye to that. And potentially as a slight restructuring and evaluation behind the scenes, it's like we're also got to cut Legends. And it is a little bit surprising that there's no consideration of like a very short series order to say goodbye to either of these shows. But again, just to be a little bit cutthroat here and frank, they probably don't particularly care, and they're just thinking, look, do we really want to renew it for just one final season to say goodbye when it might not really be worth it for us in our books, if you know what I mean? Also, we've got these other series coming in. Now, you know what, thingy over there, can you just send out the cancellation email? Thank you. They're probably, you know, to be a bit frank, as I keep saying, more along that line of thinking. And again, rightfully so. Fans really pissed off about that. And that's quite often how these things are. Now, this makes me think of The Flash Season 9. Now, if you've heard, and you may have heard already, that Season 9 could be ending with an abbreviated season, or so I believe sources tell The Hollywood Reporter. This just makes more sense than ever now that with the cancellation of Batwoman, the cancellation of Legends of Tomorrow, that The Flash, it's not like exactly being cancelled, but it will be ending in Season 9. Now, some could probably make an argument that maybe behind the scenes that they're being told that it could be seen as a cancellation in where, like, they might not want to see it continue, so they're just kind of putting it out there as, like, hey, we're going to end the show in Season 9 with an abbreviated final season. But that might be the case anyway. We have Jesse L. Martin going off, you know, Joe West on the show. The show has run its course, in my opinion, vastly so. Like, I know there's a lot of fans out there, so, like, fair enough if you love it, but for me, it is way past being, like, I think it should have ended in the way that Arrow did, maybe a little bit earlier. Like, Season 8 should have maybe have been its last season, or even earlier than that, but regardless, I'm not saying it's been softly cancelled behind the scenes, along with the Batwoman and Legends of Tomorrow cancelling, because it looked like the actors were up in the air about renegotiating, even though, you know, Candice Patton will likely come back, so will Daniel Panabaker. Of course they will for a final season run. But Grant Gustin, bottom line, it looked like they were trying to fizzle out the show anyway. But I am now just wondering if behind the scenes, and this is speculation, let me make that very clear, if with the cancellation of Legends and with the cancellation of Batwoman, granted that they weren't nearly as popular as The Flash, just makes me think and ponder, oh, I wonder if they've been like, hey, can you kind of just write out the last season with an abbreviated one? Because, you know, you've been going a while, and, like, we've just cancelled Legends and Batwoman, so maybe it's best if you do wrap it up a bit. I'm just wondering, like, I wonder if anyone that side of things on The Flash has heard any kind of low-key instruction like that, but I could be completely wrong. It's just, you can't blame me for that running through my head when they've already cancelled 2 shows, and this show, The Flash, has been going 9 seasons as of next year. And, you know, it's no surprise that people do not love it as much as they did, granted, and acknowledging the talks and discussions we had earlier of how it still makes enough ratings for it to be renewed. But it does seem as though that there is some kind of gathering of strategy and what they feel is worth it to them at the CW and WB and Discovery and just everything behind all of that. I have to admit, this just makes the kind of Earth Prime comic series feel pretty damn redundant now. Not that I was really that interested in it in the first place, because it feels like that multiversal crossover introducing Stargirl meeting some of the other heroes should have been done in live action. Not that I'm against comic book storyline tie-ins or anything like that, but again, that just sounded odd to me for the first time for that to happen in the comics. Now it's like, oh, Legends and Batwoman are gone. So it's just like, they're involved in that story, I believe. So it's like, eh? Now, this makes me think of Naomi. I can't really say too much about that because I just didn't enjoy that show. I really tried. Trust me, I go into this with the best of intentions, and it wasn't for me. And just, you know, I run this channel. I like to keep in touch with your guys' thoughts, all different members of the audience with different standards for TV and movies. And there is an audience for Naomi. There's an audience for everything. Just like there's a lot of people who still love Batwoman, despite all the seeming criticism over the years for it. But Naomi, I am wondering now if that's up in the air. I'm just going to say this. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets renewed, but I really wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't get renewed for Season 2. But I would be surprised if it gets beyond Season 3. if that makes sense. But now I'm just a bit hesitant as to what to even comment now, with not only Batwoman ending, but now that Legends is ending as well. Like, to me, you know, with my personal thoughts, I think it's time for Legends to end, in my opinion. But, like, I don't think a lot of people expected 2 shows, like, to go in the can straight up. You know, the bin can, that is. And now it's making people think, oh, are they going to do the same to Naomi? So for now, I would just say that I wouldn't be surprised if Naomi does get Season 2. But they might keep their mouths closed behind the scenes as to that might be its last season. I'm just saying. I don't know. I just got a feeling. I've just got a feeling, but hey, I just wouldn't expect it to go beyond Batwoman. By the way, though, I do want to technically add in here that this doesn't rule out Javicia Leslie's Ryan Wilder Batwoman appearing in future Arrowverse shows. Same applies for Legends of Tomorrow characters. But this is where we need to speak on the larger fact of why that might not happen, but it still could. You know, you can't rule that out. They could come back for a guest episode or something in a future crossover. But are those things even going to happen down the line? Because the only Arrowverse remaining show, strictly if you want to talk about this, is Superman and Lois. Now, Stargirl technically was involved at the end of Crisis, showing that it was on a different Earth, and it is being included in this Earth Prime crossover. But now, with there primarily being one Arrowverse show left, and yes, guys, Superman and Lois is in the Arrowverse. Don't worry about that. I mean, I think it's pretty damn clear when John Diggle from Arrow was literally in an episode. I just feel like some people need reminding of that. I get why some people, I mean, I don't really get it because it's clearly in the Arrowverse, but I get where the foundation of that argument comes from, because it does act like a standalone show. And that in itself, it is standalone, but that doesn't mean it's not outside the canon of it. It's just standalone and how it operates within its own little bubble of Smallville. Either way, this isn't a freaking video debating is Superman and Lois canon to the Arrowverse. It is. But now that Legends is gone, you know, Batwoman's gone, we can assume that given recent reports and like my previous video on The Flash talking about how it does seem to be ending in Season 9 with an abbreviated season, so I'm guessing 10-ish episodes, maybe 12, who knows, that the only show left is Superman and Lois. And sure, we got Stargirl, but the reason why I'm kind of keeping those two separate is because despite that comic, I don't know if they're going to cross over, because those two shows act standalone. Like, Stargirl's doing its own thing on their little JSA Earth 2 vibe of things. Superman and Lois is in its own little Metropolis bubble and Smallville bubble. We're going off the assumption that we're imagining ourselves after The Flash Season 9 is done. That's over. That's ended rather than cancelled. So it's just those two left. So as for future characters appearing, I just feel like Superman and Lois might... I mean, sure, they could have someone come in. And they have had that happen before with John Diggle, so you can't rule out someone like Supergirl if she wanted to come back, Melissa Benoist, for an episode coming in. I can never rule that out. But it does feel like the Arrowverse of old, to get to the point now, is out with the old, in with the V2. And what I mean by that is they're bringing in new shows, like Naomi's one of them. That's kind of operating standalone, even though you could argue it within the multiverse it's in there, just like the DCU EU Flash is with the Crisis scene with Grant Gustin and Ezra Miller. But what I'm trying to say is Gotham Knights, from what we understand, is its own thing. You could argue it's out there in the Crisis multiverse. But it just feels like they want to try and focus a little bit more on upping the scale of quality than that of what is quite critiqued these days with the Arrowverse, with things like The Flash, Batwoman, and stuff. With shows that are just, you know, like what they've done with the movies. Let's just try and make a good movie. Here's the Batman that's not connected to the DCEU. Here's Joker. I'm starting to wonder if they're like, hey, let's make Gotham Knights not really connected to the Arrowverse. Boom. Hopefully that's decent. Hey, here's Superman and Lois. It was connected and is connected to the Arrowverse quite loosely, but because it's almost got this upper scale of quality and production and stuff, they barely acknowledge it. And it feels almost like a half-deliberate action there, even though apparently they are addressing towards the end of this season what kind of connectivity it has. I don't know if it's for once and for all, but apparently there's going to be some commentary on it towards the end of this season. But you get what I'm saying here. With the years to come, it just feels like they might just try and make new shows that are just pretty half-decent to decent, or good, hopefully, like Superman and Lois has managed to do for me. And that is why I don't think the Arrowverse is technically ending, because I don't think Superman and Lois is going to be going anywhere. I will be quite flabbergasted if they say that Superman and Lois is ending with Season 3, we're getting a season 3, but it's ending with season 3, because then that would feel like they are trying to clean house. But I don't think that is the case. I don't think they're straight up trying to clean house. I don't think Superman and Lois is in danger. I don't think Stargirl is in danger. They'll want to continue that, but when it comes to like Batwoman and Legends, and now the Flash being on its 9th season, I think they're starting to be a bit like, you know, goodbye to that now. Looking at it in another way, Superman and Lois is fairly in its infancy. Stargirl as well. But then you've got new shows being ordered in for pilot that they want to put in their slots, and money. The whole Netflix deal thing that we spoke about earlier, how Batwoman wasn't even really a part of that. And then you take into account that Legends is on season 7. Batwoman wasn't doing stellar anyway. Not that ratings massively matter here, but again, Netflix deal. So they're probably like, again, pushing those out for the side. Bring in the new shiny promise and pitch of whatever Gotham Knights ordered to pilot in the first place. And then combine that with the popular Superman and Lois, you see what they're trying to collect here, and maybe trying to phase out Flash season 9 for its own kind of reasons, plus 9 seasons. You get what I'm going with here. It's just, that's where I'm kind of vibing the energy being, even though there is no distinct kind of rule of, yes, it's cancelled for this reason officially out there, if you know what I mean. I'm just trying to dive into the fabric and weaving of this. No matter who you listen to or what you listen to, it's not the case of, oh, it was a shit show and that's why it's cancelled. Well, as a result, I'd love for those people to explain how other shows have gone on for multiple seasons with half decent ratings that, you know, technically don't warrant renewal, but they kept going and going and going and going. There's clearly little bits of ideas going on here with what they want to do. So guys, just let me know your thoughts on this. It's starting to feel like they're phasing out the old. And do you agree with me? I know a lot of you will, but I know there's gonna be a lot of fans who are like, even though Legends went on for seven years or whatever, I wanted to see more of it. I enjoyed what I did out of it. But for me, it's just like, I don't feel sad about it. I mean, I feel bad for the people losing their jobs and all the writers and the crew. That's needless to say. But in terms of like the show, it's kind of a no-brainer for me with these things ending. Although abrupt cancellation does suck in any case. But again, to repeat from earlier, Flash likely ending in season 9, I feel like this foreshadows that more so than ever now. It just looks like Superman and Lois are going to hold the reins. Stargirl's going to do its own little thing. Despite that comic book, I still feel like those shows are going to maintain their standalone vibes. And then we have Gotham Knights coming in. That will likely be ordered to series. I just got a feeling it will be. I think that's pretty likely. And then God knows what else they've got coming around the corner with just other shows that are, you know, not Arrowverse related. I'm going to leave it with you guys. That's my ramble over about it. As for that now, Legends and Batwoman are cancelled, and The Flash looks to be ending next year. So it really does feel like an end of an era. But other than that, looking forward to reading your comments down in the comments below, of course. Like the video if you did enjoy this discussion. Subscribe, of course, for more update videos like this. Do stay up to date with me on Twitter and Instagram down in the links below, description below. You can find my Discord server there as well. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. And I'll see you people of the Arrowverse in the next video. Goodbye.